welcome to the revamped Climograph video as promised. I'm using a different set of data than my first image. I'm using the one still from the same sheet, but using Singapore this time. One of the first things I like to do is identify what my highest and lowest sets of data it is that I'm trying to put on my Climograph. So my highest, I've got an average monthly rainfall of 256 millimeters and temperature of 28, and my lowest is 170 millimeters and 26 degrees. So I've got all my equipment. I've got my ruler, my pencil and eraser, a black pen, my light blue pencil and my red pencil for finishing off. But an x-axis, I'm just hooking straight into the pen because it's easy for you guys to read. But of course we've got 12 months of the year, so our x-axis will need 12 increments. And you can just label these with JFM, making sure of course to label your axes properly. I'm pleased with myself, I managed to figure out how to speed stuff up. Now it's time to do my y-axes. So you can draw both y-axes at once. In this tutorial, I'm showing you a different method where I do one axis at a time. So I'm going to do my left-hand axis, which is our monthly temperature. I have a range of between 27 and 28 degrees. Singapore's temperature is pretty consistent. So I have to figure out a scale that works for the space I have. For this one, I decided 2 centimeters, or the equivalent on this graph paper zoomed in, was equal to 5 degrees. Of course, I label my axis with the temperature. The temperature for this one is pretty easy to do because they're all very, very similar. But it's really important. One of the reasons I'm doing these 2 separate steps is to help me figure out a scale that will work later to ensure no overlapping data. So, marking my temperatures onto the graph, using a pencil in case of inevitable errors. It's really important that we put our dot that we'll be using not on the edge of that increment, but in the middle of it. Okay, so it's not going on the edge here, it's going in the middle instead. I'm just marking it with a dot for now, and then going through and doing the rest of the year. And after I've finished that, I join it all with a curved line. So now it's time for that other y-axis. So I can probably get away with having these scales sort of match up. So like my temperature goes up with a scale 10 times out of my my rainfall goes up 10 times out of my temperature. Whatever you do, we just don't want the rainfall data to overlap the temperature data. Okay, so I did my check, my highest one, 256 millimeters, it will not overlap, so that's how I can do it this way. So we do the same thing, we're marking in our data. This time we're using bars though. So the one way I like to remember it is that the rainfall is in bars, kind of like a rain gauge. It's a really good idea to use your ruler here rather than trying to guess. It makes your end product more accurate and definitely more neat. So we go through and we mark our rainfall data in. Now it's time for our coloured pencils because it is time to finish off our graph. So our temperature we will go over with our red pencil. It doesn't really show up really well on video, but we're doing red pencil. And then for our rainfall, water, blue. So we do blue for our rainfall bars. Try to make this as neat as you can. It just doesn't look good if we're scrawling all over. Colour in all in the same direction. it's a little bit easier to keep neat, and it makes it look tidy at the end. So there we have it. We have a finished Climograph. Once I've finished off with my label, because I've got both my Y-axis label, I need my top one, the fact that this is Singapore. Okay, and that's it. We're done. So I'm getting my pencil, rubbing out all my eraser rather, rubbing out lines, but I do my double check. So I've got my two Y-axes, my X-axis, I've got my temperature line in red, I've got my rainfall bars in blue, I label up the top, and it's all done.